Before we begin, I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year to make all these special videos, so if you like the content here, please consider subscribing to help fulfill Project 10K. Thank you. Now on to the video. With nearly 2,000 Cars Diecasts out there, there are bound to be some great ones, some not so great ones, and some that fall just short of greatness. And that's what I want to talk about today. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video, and to another list video here on the channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about 10 Cars Diecasts that I think fell just short of greatness. These are 10 cars that I really wanted to like more than I did. Cars where, don't get me wrong, I don't dislike them, but there's just something holding me away from loving them as much as I think I should. Whether it be a car that has great details but a bad expression, or a car that looks great except it has slightly off colors, or something else entirely, this list is simply 10 examples of cars that I think were really close to being great, but didn't quite get there. In other words, this is a list of 10 times where
we were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
Now this list will be in no particular order, it's just my thoughts. Oftentimes when I do list videos, I'll pull you guys for your opinions, but this one is all my own thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours. Who knows, if I get enough interesting responses, maybe I'll do a follow-up to this in the future using cars that you guys listed. Anyway, let's begin, again, no particular order, with number 1. Number 1 on the list isn't a single car, instead it's an entire category. I'm sure many of you guys saw this coming. The 2022 Salt Flats cars. Like nearly every Cars on the Road release we've gotten, these guys are all beautifully detailed, the sculpts are incredible, they're all really well designed, they look spot on to how they're supposed to appear in Cars on the Road, but there's one thing holding all of them back, and it is, of course, these off-white tires, made to look like the cars are driving through salt. To this day, I don't understand why they chose to make them fully off-white like this instead of what they did with, say, the ice racers here, or the Fireball Beach racers, or even the muddy cars that they still do to this day, like Griswold, who released around the same time as these and has really great mud detailing on the wheels. But no, for these cars, they simply decided to make the wheels fully off-white, and it makes them look really off. This detailing continues onto the base, which I do quite like, with the exception of Royce Revsley, where making the base that color would interfere with actual details on him, since all this stuff is built into the base. But still, I really don't like how these look. They're so close to looking great. I think if you took a black Sharpie to these, they would look almost perfect. It's not something that I have any interest in doing. I don't like modifying my original Cars Diecasts, even if, you know, they are an item I don't fully like. And it seems that Mattel listened to the backlash, because by 2023, we actually stopped getting the off-white wheels on these cars. I don't know if that was a response to backlash or simply them deciding, hey, let's actually not do this. But at the very least, now new Salt Flats cars we have don't have these white wheels. They just have regular colored tires. Unfortunately, though, Mattel hasn't gone back to change any of the 2022 releases here. I would love them to re-release any of these guys with the correct black tires. I think they'd all look a lot nicer. So again, beautifully designed cars, but those tires, man, don't like how they turned out. I could have filled almost this entire list with Piston Cup cars that I was a little bit disappointed by, but out of fear of overcrowding the list, I've decided to include only one. That being Jim Reverick. Jim Reverick was the last next gen we needed back in 2021 to finally complete the set of all of the racers. And I feel like he didn't fully live up to the hype. Now, granted, it's not like they were going to do something special for the last next gen, you know, they just made him, and as per usual, made him as accurate to the character as possible. And he looks perfectly fine, but, you know, for a car that was really hyped up, I was a little underwhelmed. And that all comes down to the metallic coloring on him. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the metallic coloring on Jim Reverick. This shade of metallic blue might honestly be one of my favorite metallic colors I've ever seen Mattel use on a Cars Diecast. That looks absolutely beautiful, but only when the light hits it just right, because most of the time, while it looks alright, it does look a little bit dull. I think the biggest issue with Jim here is the metallic coloring on his hood. which you could barely make out. You could barely see the fact that it says carbon fiber. You could barely see that it says anything on his hood in most lighting. You gotta get it to be hit by the light just right to see the logo for the sponsor, and I think on a racer, that's a pretty big oversight. I wish they'd used more vibrant colors here. As much as I love the blue foil design, I wish they chose a color that wasn't as, say, sensitive to light or dependent on how light hits it. And I also think that the really dark green they chose just wasn't a good match and helps make everything else really mesh in. If they'd chosen a slightly different color, different shade of green, or different shade of metallic color, then I think he really could have popped out quite a bit more. Regardless, I still think he looks just fine. I love that metallic blue coloring, but still, I don't know, a lot of his colors just mesh too much to me. While I've been pretty burnt out on the clown cars and cars on the road, I was pretty excited to see that we'd be receiving Rodette marker in 2024. Throughout the entire episode, when the characters are at the circus, there's a running joke where Rodette pops up behind McQueen, making this really creepy smile face right behind him. Something that the mini racer encapsulated perfectly. So when I saw that we'd be getting a 155 scale Rodette, I was really excited to see them capture that creepy face once again. I mean, how could they not choose to do that? Spoiler alert, they chose to not do that, and we got this instead. Yeah, Rodette marker was so close to being an item that I really, really liked. The fact that they chose to give her this sad face instead of the face she constantly makes throughout the episode is honestly such a missed opportunity to me. I thought it was basically guaranteed they'd give her the creepy smile. I don't know why they chose this. I've heard people complain that too many of the clowns are frowning. I get that. I know like the sad clown thing is a whole thing, but I totally understand that point. I think my biggest issue with Rodette, other than the fact that they didn't give her the creepy smile, is the fact that her eyes just look so off. I think one of the easiest ways to make a Cars character look a bit off is to just simply do something wrong with the eyes, make them a bit too big, a bit too small, a bit too far apart. And here in the case of Rodette, I think they're a bit too big and a bit too far apart, and it just makes for a really strange and awkward looking expression, a strange choice when they had a perfect expression for the character right there. As long as we're on the subject of cars with botched expressions, let's talk about the 2021 re-release of Leroy Traffic with snow tires. I was really excited to see Leroy Traffic with snow tires return in 2021. It was really cool to see this obscure, random 2010 release return, and I had read several times that they were planning on bringing him back, and it was great to finally see it come to fruition. For those of you who don't know, the original Leroy Traffic with snow tires looked like this. As you can see, he has a vastly different color to the release here. And I was happy to see that for 2021, they updated him so that his color matched the original regular Leroy Traffic diecast. What I wasn't happy to see was the eye expression. Instead of reusing the eye expression of the original Leroy Traffic with snow tires, where he's looking up into the corner, they, for whatever reason, chose to reuse the eye expression of regular Leroy Traffic, but keep the mouth of Leroy Traffic with snow tires, giving us this strange abomination of a facial expression that looks so off. This one is truly the definition of so close to greatness. If only they'd given him this original expression with the updated color scheme, this would be the perfect Leroy with snow tires to me. But sometimes a car that falls just short of greatness ends up achieving greatness later on. Take, for example, Sarge with roof lights. This is Sarge's Christmas variant, first released in 2017, and ever since he first came out, I thought that they did such a strange job with his expression. His eyes are like wide open, they're just kind of staring blankly. Back in the day, I nicknamed this guy Highly Caffeinated Sarge. He looks weirdly alert for a Sarge diecast, and it just isn't an expression that really fits the character. After being around for a while, when this Sarge was re-released, made in Vietnam for the first year of wintertime cruisers back in 2021, they actually changed his expression to make it more in line with typical stern Sarge expressions, something that I was really happy to see. I guess it is a little sad that this very unique Sarge expression was replaced with a more generic one, but the new one certainly fits the character quite a bit better. I haven't gotten around to picking it up just yet. If he comes back this year, I think I finally got to bite the bullet and buy it. Another more recent example of a Cars diecast I feel fell just short of greatness is Lightning McQueen Deputy Hazard. This is an item I was really looking forward to, but when I saw it out of box, I was pretty disappointed by it. Up first, the eye expression is a bit strange to me. The eyes are strangely small and beady and close together, and it just looks kind of off to me. Additionally, I think the color scheme is way off. This sort of greenish beige color here is a bit strange and not really in line with McQueen's coloring in the episode, and the more tan color is far too dark in my opinion compared to what it should be. Both of these colors just don't look very accurate to the episode, and they also just mesh together a bit too much and don't make this McQueen pop or stand out as much as he should. From what I've heard, apparently the new Lightning McQueen Deputy Hazard with slime that released in 2024 actually recently had a running change that updated the color scheme a bit to try to make it look a bit better, which is really nice, but there's just one problem. That variant of McQueen comes with a big piece of slime over him that you're rarely gonna remove. So it's a shame that they did correct him apparently, but it's a variant that you're rarely gonna see the original coloring of. Up next, we have the item that actually inspired this entire list. I was thinking back to the Pixar Fest line from a few years back, and whenever I think of that line, there's always an item that immediately comes to my mind as an item I really, really wanted to like, but simply couldn't for one little reason, that being Pixar Fest Ramon. As you can see, this is a really beautifully well done Ramon with a great metallic yellow color scheme and unique Pixar designs, and they gave him the paint gun. Just permanently attached this paint gun accessory to his side, and I still don't get why. I really don't like that they chose to do this because this is a diecast line exclusive Ramon. This is their own unique original concept, and permanently giving him this accessory at all times I think just really brings it down a few pegs. Every Ramon we've ever gotten with a paint gun is a variant of a pre-existing Ramon. Whether it be just that Ramon but now with a paint gun on the side and maybe a slightly different expression, or a hydraulic Ramon with a paint gun. And if that's the case, then, well, we already have a regular Ramon in the same paint job without it. I don't understand why they chose for this diecast line exclusive item to permanently attach an accessory to the side when they were never going to make one without the paint gun. I feel like this really not only makes this Ramon look worse, it also just removes its usefulness, you know? This Ramon can only ever be a Ramon with a paint gun, and why they chose to do this for this exclusive line, I really don't get. Now, I've seen prototype images for the upcoming Glow Racers Ramon, and that's another Ramon where they decided to permanently give him a paint gun despite the fact that he's an original design for the diecast line. But there I could give it a pass because the Glow Racers Ramon is supposed to be a pit crew variant. All of the Glow Racer Radiator Springs characters have been pit crew variants, so Ramon always having the paint gun on him makes sense to me when it's a pit crew variant. This is just a special edition metallic Ramon, and I don't get why they decided to keep this on him. Now, Ramon actually returned for the second year of Pixar Fest, and, well, unfortunately, not only did the paint gun remain, they also caused an entirely separate issue. Now, once again, much like the 2020 Pixar Fest Ramon, I think 2021 Pixar Fest Ramon is an absolutely beautiful looking item with a striking white color scheme, the only Ramon we've ever gotten that's painted all white. My main issue, other than the fact that, again, a diecast line exclusive Ramon permanently has the paint gun on him, is the fact that every other Pixar Fest item is metallic, except for this one. And if you look at the prototype image of this Ramon featured on the back of the other 2021 Pixar Fest items, you could see that he has this metallic sheen to him. They clearly planned on making him metallic, but for whatever reason, they didn't. And when you're the only item in a line of all metallic cars that isn't metallic, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Perhaps they simply couldn't pull off a metallic white color scheme, that's what I've always kind of assumed. Regardless, this Ramon certainly stands out. While he does look great, the fact that he's the only car in Pixar Fest that's not metallic really, unfortunately, makes me not like him as much as I could have. So, yeah, we're kind of 2 for 2 on Pixar Fest Ramones. These are both items where I really, really, really love how they look, but there's just something about them, or sometimes two things about them, that hold them back in my opinion. Don't get me wrong though, these still look really good. You know, I would prefer if they didn't have the paint guns, and I would prefer if this were metallic, but if the rest of the Pixar Fest line weren't metallic, I would not have an issue with this one at all. These are probably my favorite cars featured on the list here. It's just these little things that bug me. It took us until 2019 to get a metallic variant of Sally, and when we did, I was underwhelmed to say the least. You see, in 2018, we got this great updated Sally mold, and pretty soon after that, they switched back to the original Sally mold for some reason, unfortunately. But before they did that, they released this metallic Sally. And while it is a really nice looking item and it's great to see a metallic Sally, one thing really holds this Sally back in my opinion, that being the eyes. I usually don't complain about Thailand eye plates. I think they're typically perfectly fine looking, but metallic Sally probably has one of my least favorite eye plates they've ever done. Look at how much space Sally's eyes have here. It's really perfectly accurate to the character. But here, the eye plate causes the eyes to have much less space. They're much smaller, more condensed, pushed together. I don't know why they couldn't have built her in a way where they could have made the eye plate a bit bigger. I mean, I know that they typically use the other Sally mold, right? Thailand usually uses the original 2006 Sally mold, but when they do that, they don't have a problem with the eyes. So what made them choose to make this shape eye plate when adapting this Sally mold? And finally, spot number 10 on the list is, to me, the quintessential example of a Cars diecast that was close to being great, but failed. It's Corey Turbowitz. As you can see, this is my original Corey Turbowitz. It's, quite a bit damaged at this point. This is the one I've had since like 2007 when she was released. And when I was a kid, I always remember thinking that something looked off about this character. I chalked it up to her just being kind of the wrong shape. She's a bit too long compared to the character in the movie, and just a bit too thin. I think Corey in the movie is certainly a bit differently shaped up here. They tried to capture that dip in the front, but Corey simply has a wider front than the diecast does here, as you can see. But I think the thing that could have saved Corey would be rear view mirrors. For whatever reason, Corey Turbowitz does not have a rear view mirrors, and to this day, they still haven't fixed it over a decade and a half later. I was really, really hoping that when Corey first got made in Thailand in 2021, they would correct this error, but unfortunately, they still haven't. And while I could argue that the face looks a little off, or the shaping of the front looks a little off, I think her lack of mirrors is really the biggest issue, and if you added those, Corey would end up looking quite a bit better already. But there we have it, guys. Those are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours, so let me know what cars you think fell just short of greatness in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.